He thought money could buy him respect. He thought his father's name could shield him from consequences. He thought he was untouchable. And on a humid Tuesday afternoon in downtown Charlotte, North Carolina, when he raised his hand and struck an elderly woman begging on the corner of Trade and Tryon Street, he believed no one would dare say a word. He was wrong. What happened next wasn't instant karma or divine intervention. It was something far more devastating. It was the slow, methodical collapse of everything he'd built his identity on, brick by brick, until there was nothing left but the truth he'd spent his entire life running from. This is the story of Marcus Sullivan, the boy who had everything and lost it all because he refused to see what mattered most. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're new here, click on the subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Who was Marcus Sullivan really? Why did this single moment of violence matter so much? How could one slap, witnessed by dozens of strangers, destroy an empire built over 3 generations? And what was it about Dorothy Hayes, a 73-year-old woman with nothing but a cardboard sign and a worn-out sweater, that made her words cut deeper than any lawsuit or public scandal ever could? This isn't just a story about a spoiled rich kid getting what he deserved. This is a story about the difference between respect and fear, about the price of arrogance, and about how sometimes the people we dismiss as invisible are the ones who see us most clearly. This is about what happens when life stops bending around you and forces you to finally look in the mirror. Marcus Sullivan grew up in Myers Park, one of Charlotte's wealthiest neighborhoods, where the houses had gates and the driveways had fountains. His father, Richard Sullivan, owned a commercial real estate empire that stretched across 3 states. By the time Marcus turned 16, he'd never heard the word no applied to him in any meaningful way. Teachers overlooked his tardiness because his father donated to the school. Coaches put him on teams he didn't deserve to be on because the Sullivan name opened doors. Friends, or what passed for friends, laughed at his jokes even when they weren't funny and agreed with his opinions, even when they were cruel. Marcus learned early that the world bent around him, not because of who he was, but because of what his last name represented. And that lesson, repeated thousands of times across his childhood, taught him the most dangerous thing a young man can believe: that respect and fear are the same thing. By 18, Marcus drove a BMW his father bought him for graduation. He attended the University of North Carolina on a legacy admission, not because his grades warranted it, but because 3 generations of Sullivans had walked those halls before him. He partied on weekends, skipped classes on Mondays, and still managed to pass because money, as his father often reminded him, solved most problems. But there was something missing in Marcus that he couldn't name, something hollow beneath the confidence, something cold where warmth should have been. He didn't notice it. No one around him noticed it either. Or if they did, they didn't care enough to say anything. After all, Marcus Sullivan wasn't the kind of person you corrected. He was the kind of person you tolerated, endured, and sometimes envied from a distance, even if that envy tasted bitter. That Tuesday started badly. Marcus woke up late, hungover from a party the night before. He had a meeting at noon with his father's business partner, a man named Greg Whitmore, who was supposed to discuss Marcus joining the company after graduation. It was supposed to be a formality. Everyone knew Marcus would eventually take over part of the business. It was expected. But Marcus had slept through 2 alarms, and by the time he stumbled out of bed, it was already 11:15. He showered quickly, threw on a suit that cost more than most people's monthly rent, and ran out the door without breakfast. And traffic on Independence Boulevard was a nightmare. Construction had narrowed 3 lanes down to 1, and the heat was unbearable even with the air conditioning cranked. Marcus gripped the steering wheel, jaw tight, feeling the frustration build with every red light, every slow driver, every wasted second. He hated being late. Not because it was disrespectful, but because it made him feel small, like he wasn't in control. By the time he reached downtown, it was 12:20. He was 20 minutes late. His phone buzzed with a text from Greg. "Where are you?" Marcus didn't respond. He turned onto Trade Street looking for parking when the car ahead of him stopped suddenly. Marcus slammed the brakes, cursing under his breath. A delivery truck was unloading, blocking half the lane. He honked. The driver didn't move. Marcus honked again, on longer this time, anger bubbling up from somewhere deep and irrational. Finally, the truck pulled forward just enough for cars to squeeze by. Marcus accelerated, still fuming, when he saw her. An elderly woman, mid-70s maybe, standing near the curb with a small cardboard sign that read, "Anything helps. God bless." She wore a faded blue dress, a thin sweater despite the heat, and shoes that had seen better decades. Her face was weathered but kind, the kind of face that had seen hardship and chosen softness anyway. She wasn't aggressive. She didn't shout or wave the sign. She just stood there, holding it gently, making eye contact with passing drivers, hoping. Marcus's car stopped at the red light right in front of her. She stepped forward, not too close, and raised the sign just slightly, her eyes meeting his through the windshield. And something about that look, that quiet plea, that assumption that he might care, made something inside Marcus snap. He rolled down the window. "Get a job," he said, loud enough for her to hear, loud enough for the pedestrians on the sidewalk to turn and look. The woman didn't react. She just lowered the sign slightly, her expression unchanged, still kind, still patient. And that patience, that refusal to be humiliated, made Marcus even angrier. He opened the car's door and stepped out. The light was still red. People were watching now. A man in a business suit paused mid-step. A woman with a stroller stopped on the corner. A teenager filming something on his phone turned the camera toward Marcus without even thinking about it. Marcus walked around the front of the car and stood in front of the woman. She looked up at him, calm and unbothered, and said softly, "I'm sorry if I upset you, son. I'm just trying to get by." And that word, son, spoken with such gentleness, such assumed familiarity, made Marcus feel something he couldn't name. Rage, shame, both. He raised his hand and slapped her across the face. Not hard enough to knock her down, but hard enough to make a sound, hard enough to leave a red mark blooming across her cheek, hard enough that everyone watching gasped. The woman stumbled back a step, her hand going to her face, her eyes wide, but not with fear. With something else. Sadness, maybe, or pity. She looked at Marcus for a long moment, and then she said, in a voice so quiet it was almost a whisper, "You're going to lose everything you think makes you strong. And when you do, you'll finally understand what strength really is." Marcus laughed. A short, bitter sound. "Yeah, okay, lady. Whatever." He got back in his car. The light turned green. He drove away. Behind him, the woman lowered her hand from her cheek, said a quiet prayer, and walked slowly to a nearby bench to sit down. The teenager posted the video online 30 seconds later. By the time Marcus reached the parking garage, it had already been viewed 200 times. If this story has you still watching, comment, "I'm still watching." Let's see who stays until the very end. And tell me, what would you have done if you witnessed what Marcus did that day? Would you have intervened? Would you have recorded it? Or would you have just walked away? I want to hear your honest thoughts. That night, Marcus didn't think about the woman. He told himself it didn't matter. She was nobody. He was Marcus Sullivan. His father would handle it if it became a problem. And even if people saw the video, so what? People forgot things. The internet moved fast. By tomorrow, no one would care. But the video didn't disappear. By morning, it had been shared across local news stations. A reporter named Jessica Tran ran a story titled "Wealthy Student Assaults Homeless Woman in Broad Daylight." The woman's name was Dorothy Hayes. She was 73 years old. She'd been a school teacher for 30 years before medical bills from her husband's cancer treatment wiped out their savings. After he died, she lost the house. She'd been living in a shelter for 8 months, doing odd jobs, asking for help when she had to. Well, she had 3 children who didn't know where she was. She had grandchildren she hadn't seen in years. And she had a face that people across Charlotte now recognized as the victim of a young man's cruelty. Marcus's phone started ringing at 6 in the morning. His father, his mother, his lawyer, the university's dean of students. By noon, Marcus was sitting in a conference room with his father, a public relations consultant named Andrea Morris, and the family's attorney, a man named Tom Bannister, who looked exhausted before the meeting even started. "You need to apologize," Andrea said, her voice calm but firm. "Publicly. On camera. Today." Marcus shook his head. "I'm not apologizing to some homeless woman who was harassing me." His father, Richard, slammed his hand on the table. "You will do exactly what Andrea tells you to do. Or I swear to God, Marcus, I will cut you off entirely. Do you understand me?" Marcus stared at his father, shocked. Richard had never spoken to him like that. Ever. "This isn't just about you anymore," Richard continued, his voice cold. "This is about the business, about our reputation. You've embarrassed this family, and you will fix it." But Marcus didn't apologize. Not that day, not the next. He convinced himself it would blow over. It didn't. Within a week, the fallout began. The university launched an investigation into Marcus's conduct. His fraternity, under pressure from alumni threatening to pull donations, suspended him. 3 companies his father worked with issued statements distancing themselves from the Sullivan family. One of them, a retail developer named Prestige Properties, canceled a $12 million deal they'd been negotiating for 6 months. Marcus's Instagram, which had 20,000 followers built on pictures of cars, parties, and luxury vacations, was flooded with comments calling him a coward, a bully, a disgrace. He tried to ignore it. He deleted the app. But the damage was done. Friends stopped calling. Invitations to parties dried up. Even his girlfriend, a girl named Brooke Hamilton who'd been with him for 2 years, broke up with him over text. "I can't be associated with you right now," she wrote. "I'm sorry." Marcus read the message 3 times, waiting to feel something, anger maybe, hurt. But all he felt was emptiness. His father stopped speaking to him unless absolutely necessary. His mother cried when she thought he couldn't hear. And Marcus, for the first time in his life, felt the weight of consequences pressing down on him like a physical thing. He couldn't sleep. When he did, he dreamed of the woman's face, her calm eyes, her quiet voice saying, "You're going to lose everything you think makes you strong." He woke up sweating, heart racing, and couldn't fall back asleep. Food tasted like nothing. Music sounded flat. The things that used to bring him joy, cars, clothes, attention, felt meaningless now, like toys a child had outgrown. 2 weeks after the incident, Marcus walked into his father's study and found Richard sitting at his desk, staring at a letter. "What's that?" Marcus asked. Richard looked up, his expression unreadable. "The board voted to remove me as CEO." Marcus felt his stomach drop. "What? Why?" "Because of you," Richard said simply. "It's because I raised a son who thinks he's above basic human decency. And now everyone associated with the Sullivan name is paying for it." Marcus opened his mouth to argue, but no words came. Richard stood, walked past him without another glance, and left the room. Marcus stood there alone, the silence pressing in from all sides. And for the first time in his life, he felt afraid. 3 months passed. Marcus was expelled from the university. The official reason was conduct unbecoming of a student representative. But everyone knew the truth. His father's company filed for bankruptcy after 2 more major clients pulled out. The house in Myers Park, the one Marcus had grown up in, was put up for sale. His mother moved in with her sister in Raleigh. His father took a job consulting for a firm in Atlanta, a massive step down from CEO, and barely spoke to Marcus anymore. Marcus himself moved into a small apartment in a part of Charlotte he'd never been to before. A place where the walls were thin and the neighbors were loud and the rent was $800 a month, which felt impossible on the part-time job he'd managed to get at a hardware store. He'd applied to 20 places. Only one called him back. The manager, a man named Carl Rodriguez, looked at Marcus during the interview and said, "I saw the video. You know that, right?" Marcus nodded. "Yeah." "So why should I hire you?" Carl asked. Marcus didn't have a good answer. He just said, "Because I need the job." Carl stared at him for a long time, then sighed. "You're going to work harder than anyone else here. You're going to show up on time, do what you're told, and treat every customer like they matter. Oh, do you understand?" "Yes, sir," Marcus said quietly. "Good. You start Monday." The work was hard. Manual labor, stocking shelves, unloading trucks, dealing with customers who sometimes recognized him and whispered to each other when he walked by. But Marcus showed up every day, on time. He didn't complain. He didn't make excuses. And slowly, something inside him started to shift. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't a lightning bolt moment. It was small, gradual, like ice melting in the sun. He started noticing things he'd never paid attention to before. The way Carl treated his employees with respect, even when they made mistakes. The way a regular customer, an older man named Mr. Peterson, always said thank you, even for the smallest help. The way his co-worker, a single mom named Shanice, worked 2 jobs and still found time to smile when asked how his day was going. These people Marcus would have ignored or looked down on 6 months ago, were teaching him something without even trying. They were teaching him what it meant to be human. One Saturday afternoon, nearly 4 months after the incident, Marcus saw her, Dorothy Hayes. She was sitting on a bench outside a church on Central Avenue, the same faded blue dress, the same worn shoes, but her face looked different somehow. Lighter, at peace. Marcus's first instinct was to walk the other way, but something stopped him. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was curiosity. Maybe it was the fact that her words, "You're going to lose everything you think makes you strong," had been rattling around in his head every single day since she'd said them. He walked over slowly, his heart pounding. When he was a few feet away, she looked up and saw him. Her expression didn't change. No anger, no fear, just recognition. "Ma'am?" Marcus said, his voice shaking. "I don't know if you remember me, but I remember," Dorothy said gently. Marcus swallowed hard. "I'm so sorry. For what I did. For how I treated you. I was wrong. I was awful. And I've spent the last 4 months realizing just how wrong I was. Dorothy nodded slowly. I forgive you. Marcus blinked, surprised. Just like that? Just like that, she said. Forgiveness isn't about whether you deserve it. It's about freeing both of us from what happened. Marcus sat down on the bench beside her, and for the next hour, they talked. Dorothy told him about her life, about her husband, about teaching second graders for 3 decades. That's about losing everything and learning that things were never what mattered most anyway. Marcus told her about his father, about the company, about the life he'd lost and the person he was trying to become. Do you think people can really change? Marcus asked. Dorothy looked at him with those calm, kind eyes. I think people change when they finally understand that strength isn't about power. It's about humility. It's about knowing when to kneel. Marcus thought about that. You said I'd lose everything I thought made me strong. You were right. And did you? Dorothy asked. Did you lose it? Yeah, Marcus said quietly. I did. And what did you find? Marcus paused, thinking. Then he said, I don't know yet, but I think I'm starting to. 6 months later, Marcus was still working at the hardware store. His father reached out once. A brief phone call where Richard said, I'm proud of you for sticking with it. It wasn't much, but it was something. Marcus started volunteering at the same shelter Dorothy stayed at, serving meals on weekends, helping organize donations. He didn't do it for recognition. He did it because it felt right. One evening, while cleaning up after dinner service, he saw Dorothy sitting at one of the tables, talking to a younger woman who looked lost and afraid. Dorothy saw Marcus and waved him over. This is Angela, Dorothy said. She just got here today. I was telling her that sometimes the worst moments in our lives lead us exactly where we need to be. Marcus smiled. She's right about that. Angela looked at him confused. How would you know? Marcus glanced at Dorothy, who gave him a small, knowing nod. And because I used to be someone who thought I was better than everyone else. And it took losing everything to realize I was wrong. Angela didn't say anything, but Marcus could see something shift in her expression. Understanding, maybe. Or hope. A year after the incident, Marcus enrolled in community college. He was studying social work. His grades were good. His professors liked him. He'd made a few real friends, people who knew his story and didn't care. People who saw who he was now, not who he'd been. One afternoon, he ran into Jessica Tran, the reporter who'd first covered the story. She was doing a follow-up piece on Dorothy, who'd recently been reunited with her children after they saw the news coverage and tracked her down. Can I ask you a few questions? Jessica said. Marcus hesitated, then nodded. Sure. Do you regret what you did? She asked. Every single day, Marcus said honestly. But I'm grateful for what it taught me. And what's that? Marcus thought for a moment. That respect isn't something you demand. It's something you earn. And that real strength comes from admitting when you're wrong and doing the work to be better. Jessica published the interview. Some people commented that Marcus didn't deserve a redemption arc. Others said everyone deserves a second chance. Marcus didn't read the comments. He'd learned that what strangers thought didn't matter as much as what he knew to be true. He was different now. Not perfect, not even close, but better. And that was enough. 2 years after that Tuesday afternoon, Marcus graduated with his associate degree. Dorothy was in the audience, and sitting next to Carl and Shanice and Mr. Peterson from the hardware store. His mother was there too. His father couldn't make it, but he sent a card that said, I'm proud of the man you've become. Marcus cried when he read it. After the ceremony, Dorothy gave him a hug. "You did it," she said. "No," Marcus said. "We did it. You gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve one." Dorothy smiled. "Everyone deserves a second chance, Marcus. The question is whether they'll take it." Marcus thought about the boy he used to be. The arrogance, the cruelty, the emptiness. And he thought about the man he was now. Still learning, still growing, still trying. "I took it," he said, "and I'm never letting it go." So let me ask you something. Do you believe people can truly change? Or are we forever defined by our worst moments? And if you were in Dorothy's place, could you forgive someone who hurt you the way Marcus hurt her? Think about the people in your own life, the ones who've wronged you, the ones you've wronged. Is forgiveness possible? Is redemption real? Or are we all just stuck being who we've always been? Leave your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to hear what you think. And if this story made you feel something, if it made you think about your own life or the people you've encountered, subscribe so you never miss stories like this. Because the stories that change us are the ones we carry with us long after they end. This is Marcus Sullivan's story. But maybe, in some way, it's all of our stories too. Thank you for watching.